Des Moines, and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Mac's World Live. Mac's World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Mac's World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Mac's World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
Good afternoon, 7 minutes after 4 o'clock on this 25th day of February in the Lord's year 2016. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Glad to have you here listening today on Mac's World. Mac's World is a very simple program. It's about you. I am not the star of this radio program. I never am. The star of this radio program are my guests and you on the phone or on the text. Now, if you think that sounds really weird coming from a talk show host, you have never listened to me before. Number one, I don't pontificate. In other words, I always have other people around me. Two people always agree one of them isn't necessary, and you're necessary in this conversation. Number two, you will always be treated with kindness on this radio program. You will not be hung up on, I just don't do that. I guess I haven't, I don't know, have I ever done that, Bob? Since you and I have been together?
You mean get on some people's cases and argue with them and put them down and that kind of thing?
Okay, well, I know I do that, but I don't hang up on them, though, do I? No. I always respect their opinion.
Right.
Yeah. So it's your voice I want to hear anytime, any place in this show. 244-0077. 515, that's the studio line. Jeff is standing by in just a minute on that line. We're going to have a minute to talk to him. And then on the Service Legends Truth Talk text line at 515-809-0993. Peter Kolmanowski has stuck with us, president of Partnership for a Drug-Free Iowa. And our special guest this hour is Pastor Stephen Bailey from North Point Church, which meets at Rock Creek Elementary in Ankeny, way out to the northwest. Right? I mean, you're off the new exit and then head west.
Yeah, just south of Rock Creek, there's a retirement facility being built, and there's some apartments, and there's one home.
One.
But probably by the summer, that'll be 100.
Yeah.
We're hoping.
So, and his services at Rock Creek Elementary every Sundays at 10 o'clock, and you're non-denominational.
Evangelical free.
I asked you that last time, and I got that wrong. See, I always think of evangelical free. Ooh, I got to be careful. Well, I don't.
It's denomination light. Like a Bud Light, it's denomination light.
I didn't want to offend you, but I've always thought in a good way,
yes,
not in a bad way,
yep,
that the evangelical free churches are the top of the non-denominationals.
It's just as fluid. That's why I went to the seminary way back in the day, because they're about as rule less, I think, as a denomination can be. I'm a fan of that.
Okay, yeah, you should be. All right. We're talking about some moral issues today. In fact, it was interesting when Pastor Bailey got here today. He said, as I was listening to the show coming in, it's all about morality.
Morality and character, right?
Yeah, and it's, do we find our identity in God, the Father, the Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, or do we find it in what we make up? And as far as I'm concerned, if you're making it up, you're on the accuser's team. Because to me, there's only two teams. I hear all the time these people, what about free will? Let me tell you what free will is. Are you ready? You're not going to like this if you're a free will person. It's sinful nature. There is no free will in the Bible. Well, it's mentioned twice in Psalms, but not in that way. Whenever free will is spoken, like Paul in Romans or Corinthians, it's called sinful nature. So if you're doing it your way and you're not doing it God's way, you better believe that the horseman that's leading your pack is the guy we call the accuser, the devil. Not Jezebel. What's that word? The Jezebel? No, it's Jebediz.
Well, there is a Jezebel spirit.
No, you know what I'm trying to think of? Isn't there with a J in the Bible?
No idea.
Jebel or something? Okay, never mind. Anyway, the devil. So,
Beelzebub?
Yeah.
Beelzebub.
Oh, yeah. It starts with a B.
B.
Okay, sorry. And so we're talking about some moral issues. It's your voice we want to hear. Let's go to the phones right now where Jeff is standing by. Jeff, you're live in Mac's World. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling in.
So I don't know what the big deal is about transgender bathrooms. They're just a single toilet, single sink restroom, right? And you have a transgender bathroom in your home probably right now, where the opposite sexes use that bathroom all the time. I work on a construction site. Women use the same toilet that I use. I don't have a problem with it. Now, I would have a problem with if there was more than one stall in there and, some young lady was sticking her selfie stick underneath trying to see what I have. That would I'd have a problem with.
And, Jeff, I agree with you. And Peter's jumping on the phone or jumping on his power box over there, and we're going to find out because it was my understanding that these were multiple stall bathrooms.
That's when I saw them on the news. I think it was Channel 8 had it that it was just a single use bathroom, and they just took the men and the women's signs down and put restroom. And I think you use them at places like Target and Walmart where they have a family restroom.
Yeah.
Well, here at Merle Hay Mall, we have a series in the entrance of the mall. There's about 5 or 6 of them that is unisex bathrooms that anybody can use. It's a private toilet and a sink. I think I would have no issue with that, just like you're saying, Jeff.
Do you think that this is a movement towards where it'll be a bunch of stalls?
Well, yes, it kind of sounds like that. That's what the reaction I was getting from the story, but we could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah, we could be, but who knows? We have changed a lot.
Well, would you have an issue with multiple stalls that both female and male or transgender could use at the same time?
Yes, I would have a problem with that.
Yeah, I think we're in agreement.
All right, well, we're going to do some, Jeff, I appreciate you calling. We're going to do some checking into that because that's a very important point. If all they've done is taken a men's room and a women's room and said now either gender can use one of these rooms at any time.
And there's a lock on the door.
Yeah, then I don't see a problem with it either. And I might have misread the story.
I got a quote from the news here.
All right, go ahead, Peter.
Have a good day.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you calling in. 244-0077. That is the phone line if you'd like to call in. Go ahead, Peter.
In this story, it says the single-unit restrooms are located in the library so staff can monitor the students who use it.
So this is a single
unit.
All right.
And this is a story from Nowcast. It's a KCCI story.
Okay.
Well, my question would be, why don't they just call it a family or a single bathroom?
Yeah.
Why do they have to label it that way?
Well,
that's my question.
Private
PC.
bathroom.
But that's not what it means. That's not the use of
But did
that term in our culture.
Did they just label it restroom? I'm not sure. That's what I thought.
No, the sign on it is, shoot, I'll have to look it up. I saw it on the, do you have KCCI's thing there, Peter, in front of you? I think they have a photograph of the sign that's on the bathroom, and it's genderless or no
Gender neutral.
All gender. Oh, I just hit it and it tried to go to video. Sorry.
All right. Well, let's check into that. But see, the pastor brings up a good point. Because this is I should you tell me what you think by that point. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Well, as I mentioned, driving down about an hour ago, I think the topics from the first hour, what kept coming to my mind was what I call the moral slide in our culture. One little step, one little step, one little step, one little step. And I don't know if this constitutes that or not. I think of in Proverbs where it talks about don't move to the left or the right, basically walk down the center of the path and keep your eyes ahead. And biblically, example after example, you look, when you move to the left or the right, you're in trouble morally.
But there's a political party who call themselves progressive, describing exactly what you just said, incremental steps.
Right.
And what we Christians, what they see as progress, a lot of Christians see as decadence.
Right. One of the scriptures that came to mind, a lot of the listeners might know from James 1, starting verse 13, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me, for God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But each one is tempted when by his own evil desire he's dragged away and enticed. You call that free will, Mac. Then after desire has conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin when it's full grown gives birth to death. And I read that and think of that specifically because I know at one point in my life I thought of when I committed a sin, it's done. It's over. I did that. It was bad. But according to that scripture, sin is like a cancer. Yeah. It constantly grows. And the more it grows in a culture, the more it destroys a culture. And I think that's where, I don't know if the conversation will go here. I have great concern over Christians that go, well, we'll give an inch here. We'll give an inch here.
Right.
We can't do this. We can't do that. And we're just giving ground.
Right. And see, I sit on the other side of that on a political topic where I think we should, and I know people are just going to hate it when I say this, but if a woman gets raped and she ends up being pregnant, I am not going to tell her she can't have an abortion. Now, I know that's a life and it's not the baby's fault. I get that. I have met babies that were conceived out of rape, and they always try to change my mind. But something in my heart says, if I could stop the slaughter of 99% of the unborn babies, and all I have to trade off is a woman who files rape charges against a man who's now pregnant. But see, that's not popular.
But then
Tim Overland, who's a good buddy of mine, I love him, brother of mine, he heard that right now. He's pulling his red hair out.
Accusations of rape would probably go on the climb.
All right, we'll continue this conversation, and I'll tell you where I got the idea that this is multiple stall. But apparently, Peter, they're not multiple stall. They're single stall. The challenge we're talking about now is, why are they called transgender? We'll talk about that when we come back live here on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Hey everybody, I brought Northern Lights Pizza! And it's got Graziano sausage!
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
shouldn't sing. 21 minutes after 4 o'clock, 25th day of the second month of February in the Lord's year 2016. Whew, that's a mouthful, but we like to date our shows. Someday you'll turn on this station and you'll hear a date, and it won't be that date because there are days when I can't be here, and Frank doesn't have permission from his mom to leave the house that day. And so we have a best of, and that's why I date them. I date them so you know that that show today is not live. It was previously recorded. All right. Let me give you my roundup of wonderful people around me. First of all, watching the chat and the new Service Legends Truth Talk text line at 515-809-0993. Former DCI, former what? How did you say your title? You were DCI?
Yeah, DCI Crime Lab.
Crime Lab.
Criminalist.
Like CSI. You're a CSI kind of guy.
Yes.
All right. 35 years with the state of Iowa, my good friend and brother in Christ, Bob Montserrat. Then sitting to his left is a feral cat that started coming around and hanging around me a few years ago, and I made the mistake of feeding him warm milk, and he stays around, and we call him Frank the Verse. Now, he used to be the Voice. And then he made Michael Mudloff so mad that he renamed him the Verse. And I don't know which is greater, Frank's ego or his knowledge of Bible verses. One of them is really big, and the other is even bigger.
And you have to put that into perspective because Michael is a hardline Calvinist.
Yeah, and you're not. All right, then we have Peter Kalmanowski, who is the president of Partnership for Drug-Free Iowa, and he came in today because we were talking about this marijuana legislation, and then we kind of rolled into the next hour with my other special guest, Pastor Stephen Bailey from North Point Church, which meets at Rock Creek Elementary in Ankeny at 10 a.m. every Sunday. And, of course, the show sounds and it looks wonderful because our brother Ryan is producing once again today. All right, and we're talking about the fact that Roosevelt High School has taken, and I want to make sure I get this right, Peter, they've taken what were previously 2 single stall bathrooms, one for women, one for men, that were for faculty.
Right.
And they have now put a sign on them that says all genders.
Right.
So they can be used by students and faculty. But the way it's being presented in the media is it's a transgendered bathroom. And it's the language that's being used. And please do not be fooled by the slippery slope of the progressive language. All right, let's go to the phones where Matt is standing by. Matt, you're live in Max World. How you doing, Matt?
Pretty good, Mac. How you doing?
Good, buddy, good.
I kind of wanted to weigh on the transgender thing. I think that it's wrong to be able to have, unless they maybe had the surgery and you can't tell, then it might not bother me. But one of the issues I had is I used to work for Target, and men were not allowed to wear shorts in the back room, but women were allowed to wear skirts. So I went in the closet, my wife grabbed a khaki skirt and wore it to work one day and had shorts underneath it. And I got ridiculed for it all day long. And I ended up wearing it for a couple of weeks, actually. And my boss just said, hey, that's what you get for wearing a skirt to work. And I thought, if I was really transgender, I would have an argument, but I'm not. But I just thought it was kind of wrong that that's what they would say about, it's okay, you shouldn't be wearing a skirt if you don't want to get ridiculed for it.
Huh, yeah, all right. Yeah, that reminds me, a lot of times bars and nightclubs will have skirt night because you can't say ladies' night anymore. That's illegal. Okay,
right.
Because it's a gender specific. So then they call it skirt night, and then what do the guys do? Well, they come in a skirt. Of course they're going to.
Right.
All right, Bill, man, thanks for listening. I appreciate it.
Yep.
244-0077, that's the number, 515-244-0077, and we have the Service Legends Truth Text Talk line at 515-809-0993. Anybody texting you madly, Robert?
Not madly. But there's a comment I have here. It says, so is it going to be okay for dads to go in with their daughters to protect them? That would be 2 genders together as well.
Yeah, and here's the reason why I just think it's phrased wrong. When Jeff called a little bit ago and said, no, wait a minute. Why is it a transgendered bathroom? Why isn't it just a single stall, one at a time, no gender on the bathroom wall? Well, that's what it is. But the media is quick to say, and I'm going to read the beginning of this story from the Des Moines Register. Earlier this year, Zoe Wagner was using the women's restroom at Roosevelt High School when she noticed a peer who identifies himself as a transgendered man. He uses a male name and wears what would largely be considered male clothes, but using the women's restroom. He moved quickly and seemed so uncomfortable that Wagner remembered thinking to herself, I wonder why there isn't a faculty or a facility in this school for our, what? Transgendered population. So she and a bunch of people got together, and starting in mid-December, they got together in mid-December, and starting a few days ago, 2 white pieces of paper with the words all gender restroom taped on the bathroom walls. And it goes on and on and on and talks about transgendered students. Now, Pastor, you and I were talking off mic or in break, where you see this as a slippery slope, and help us understand where you're coming from on that.
Well, an example came to mind. I don't know if I'm going too far back or too far off here. I was thinking in high school, as a Christian, I had all non-Christian friends in my school. And one day we were driving somewhere, and the song in 1979, the "We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions" came on. I'd never heard it. I made the mistake of saying, "What a cool song," to which I was totally ridiculed by my friends because they're like, "That's the #1 song in the nation, idiot," you know. And at that point, I didn't have my own car. I drove my mom's car, but I was embarrassed enough by my friends that all of a sudden all the presets on my mom's car suddenly changed. I was more aware of, wanting to listen to WRIF in Detroit for several months. And I think the slippery slope idea is I found myself after 2 or 3 months with every little step, attitudes changed, drive faster, different things like that. And at one point I just kind of went, what's wrong with me? I don't even really want this kind of music. I don't like this kind of music. Why do I care what they think? So I think so many things in our culture, Christians just have to be aware, I guess, what we really believe according to the scriptures, and that we can't budge, that we have to maintain and stay true to the faith, true to the word.
And you believe we do?
Oh, no, I think we're terrible at it for the most part.
You're right, but you think we should?
Oh, if you want to follow the word, you do.
Okay.
That song was by Queen, the lead singer Freddie Mercury, who, of course, was openly gay and died of AIDS. But let me ask you about a slippery slope. We had a guest a while back. There was a lot of suicides among 11 and 12-year-old kids in the Southeast Polk School District with quote-unquote sexual identity crises of bisexualness. I'm wondering why a 12-year-old should even know that term, bisexual.
Right.
Much less whether they're straight or gay or whatever, but how do they know that? But that's part of the slippery slope of this whole sexual agenda to hypersexualize our pre-adolescent children into a sexual identity crisis where there should be no crisis at all.
Yeah,
do you see it that way?
I do, and I think it's interesting. Earlier, Mac talked about having your identity in Christ, and teaching. I'm part-time pastor. I also teach psychology at DMAC, and boy, we talk a lot in the classroom, self-esteem, self-confidence, and all those terms, which I think clearly as a Christian, almost all of those terms are really, really bad terms, because all they do is focus me, me, me. You know, it's the selfie generation, and I think nothing good comes out of that the more I focus on me. And I even, this is the way I think of it, I don't think self-esteem is in Scripture. I think we're supposed to have God-esteem if our identity comes from Christ. But as soon as, in whatever aspect, as soon as I start to focus on me and my this and I have it my way, all I'm thinking about is me.
Pastor Steve Bailey is one of my guests today. He's with North Point Church. They meet at the Rock Creek Elementary School in Ankeny at 10 o'clock on Sundays. if this is difficult for you to answer, I don't want you to get in trouble by answering this. But what, as a Christian man, as a pastor, as somebody who walks with Jesus every day, and then you're thrust into the educational system, which is obviously very progressive.
Right.
And at DMAC, you have different aged people, but I would imagine primarily they're younger.
Mm-hmm.
What are you seeing? My view of young people basically come through my grandchildren, or if I sit down here in the mall and I'm obviously much more disgusted with what I see in the mall than with my grandchildren, but even with my grandkids, it's like, really? Where do you get that? Where is that important? Why is that what you're thinking?
If you were going to sit in my classes next week, we're headed towards chapter 10, which is morality. And here's
Can
how
I come in and be a special guest?
Absolutely. Well, and I tell them at the beginning of the class, my goal is to make you as mad as possible. By the end of the class, we do some textbook definitions. Then I say, let's say you go to McDonald's and you come out with $5 extra and you're a mile down the road. Do you take it back? So that's a pretty lively discussion. But about a half hour later, I end it with, and I continue to ask them, is there a right, is there a wrong, is there truth? And, of course, they don't want truth for the most part, and it's only your opinion. And I say, at some point, this goes over well, I say, so you can't really tell me that Hitler was wrong, then can you? If there's no truth, no basis for morality, and, of course, they don't. And somebody might say, well, that has nothing to do with McDonald's and $5, and I'll draw a line on the chalkboard and I'll say, where's the middle? When does it become wrong? What's an incredible privilege and so sad to me is 99% of the students have no basis for morality. They can't even talk about the question. Apart from their own, it's just up to me.
Pastor Steve Bailey is here with us from North Point Church in Ankeny, meets at Rock Creek Elementary. Do I also call you Professor then?
Sure. If you'd like to.
But is that a correct title?
I guess it would be, yeah.
Okay. Peter, when you're out running around schools and other associations, Peter Komanowski with the Partnership for a Drug-Free America, what are you seeing with kids' attitudes towards morals and right and wrong?
That's a great question, because I was pondering a question for Pastor Steve, because I also get a chance to work with psychologists at Iowa State University, child psychologist Doug Gentile. And we're noticing that if we look at like a child's budget, the amount of time they spend on the internet and doing technology stuff, and keep in mind, I look at technology like a hammer. If you build a house with it, it's a pretty good tool. But
Sure.
if I hit you in the head with it, it's no longer benevolent. So it's how you use it. But we see at one time we thought, how great that our children can see what's happening around the world. They can get on the internet and learn new things. But this is primarily unfiltered learning. Mm-hmm. And they're spending in excess of 50 hours a week outside of the control of a parent, a teacher, or anybody that really is mentoring their value system, being influenced by this essentially two-dimensional or virtual portal.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing is the confusion that kids have is that they see so much more effective messaging in that media than even parents or the faith community is giving them. That we got to start wondering, do you think that we need to take back some of this real estate and get them off of these tools and focused on more constructive use of this information?
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll hear that answer. You think about that, Professor, and we'll hear from you next.
Yes, sir.
It's Max World Live here on the place that you know is what? The Truth. 99.3.
Northern Lights Pizza's amazing garlic butter makes amazing breadsticks. Now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza. I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Homs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed right or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money-back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
.438, 22 minutes before the top of the hour. Top of the hour, Hank, the Bible Answer Man. 1-888-ASK-HANK. Make sure you call now and get in if you'd like to get on his worldwide show. It's live. 1 hour, 5 to 6 Central Time. You can figure out the other day parts or the other time zones. But I like Hank. I'm at no level to disagree with him. I don't know my Bible well enough to do that. Maybe you do. I know Frank thinks he does, and he'll disagree with him from time to time. But there's one thing you can always be sure of with Frank, okay? What's bigger, his ego or his knowledge of the Bible? We don't know yet, and the good news is the Bible's hitting a real close second, I think. All right, special guest Peter Kolmanowski, who is the president of a partnership for drug-free Iowa. Steve Bailey, Pastor Steve Bailey from North Point Church, meets at Rock Creek Elementary at 10 a.m. on Sundays. He's also a professor of psychology. See, I'd love to sit down and talk with people who are into psychology and who teach psychology. But there's a lot of people who, they're afraid to talk to you, right? Yeah, they think you're going to psychoanalyze them. And the truth is, of course you are. Yeah, it's like every time I sit down with a dentist, I think, what if I'm did I shiny? Yeah. Did I brush him enough? And then I go, in the mirror. Oh no, I'll keep my mouth shut. Bob Monster at the Cat in the Hat watching the chat, and the verse. Frank, you have a text for us at the Service Legends Truth for Text talk line at 515-809-0993.
Right, but does the pastor remember the question before break?
Well,
so I don't know if this is associated with it, but let me read it. What is the proper response to minister to someone who is confused about their gender? I will not shame them. I will love them. I would build a relationship with them. I would at some point tell them what the Bible said, but I would love them.
All right, well, let's get to that in a minute. You're right. We should have waited on that, because what was the question, Peter, you asked Steve?
We were talking specifically about the influence of all the social media that children are doing today and how that may be affecting their moral judgment and behavior outside of any understandable bounds by parents or teachers.
In my classes, I have them do journals. There are 8 journals. Journal number 3. Journal number 2 is, I call it the habit journal. I have them give up a habit for a weekend. And we talk about it several class periods ahead of time because it's a brand new idea. And I tell them basically what you think you can't live without, but what you really can, you have to give it up for 72 hours and then write about it. And then, of course, I grade them and give them feedback. Usually at least half of the students will give up social media. I tell them ahead of time, this will be harder than you ever imagine. About another third give up caffeine, and that's almost just as hard. I wish I could. They're obviously confidential. The things that students write blow me away every semester, and they're horrifying. 30, 40 hours a week. I didn't know I was addicted. A lot of times they'll say I'm going right back to it, but they'll write things. I almost think they don't realize what they're writing. They'll say, when I couldn't do social media, I was amazed how much I used it, but I actually did my homework. I actually went out with friends. I actually did an activity. And I've started calling social media virtual life because it feels like it's this thing that I don't think we can handle it for the most part. It's like, would you give a driver's license to an 8-year-old? No, because they're an 8-year-old. So like you said, technology is great. I think for the most part, we just get sucked in and we don't even know who we become.
Professor and Pastor Steve Bailey, North Point Church, Rock Creek Elementary, meets at 10 a.m. and they can take your DMAC class. Are you on Ankeny campus?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't mind sitting in on that.
Stop in?
So I'm serious. What time is the class?
This semester I got an 8 o'clock and a 10:10.
In the morning?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, well, there are 2 8 o'clocks.
There are.
10:10 I could make. I'm in Bible study usually till 8 o'clock, but then I could make 10:10. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Bob, okay, let's go back to Peters. He gave you an answer. You okay with that answer?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's part of our educational process to let children understand this.
Are we just old men? Is that our problem? I mean, now, I don't want to embarrass Ryan, but here's a young man who uses social media correctly. He understands technology far greater than I probably ever will. And he's a wonderful young man, loves Jesus, but yet he uses social media in a correct way. Shouldn't we don't we see someday maybe laws against how much social media you can use in a day, or I don't know.
Well, here's a warning.
You have a breathalyzer on social media?
Here's a warning, and I share this in my classes as well. Before he passed away, Steve Jobs was interviewed. I don't remember the name of the newspaper writer or journalist, but he was asked sort of casually, your kids must love you because they all have iPads, right? And Steve Jobs said, we don't let our own kids use technology because in the business we see what it does to them.
Oh, wow.
To me, that was striking. And then there's a whole school in California that's computer free somewhere in the Silicon Valley. And the people that send their kids there are the Yahoo execs, the Google execs, because they see it. Yep.
Interesting. Well, I would never let any of my kids. I mean, I said earlier, my partner and I would build restaurants, and they were so our kids could work there. And then as soon as my youngest daughter knew that she was going to go do something else, we sold the restaurants. I don't want my kids in the restaurant business. No different. Okay, Robert, you've got a text from the Service Legends Truth Text Talk line at 515-809-0993. Tell me what it says, and it's a question for, I believe, you, Steve.
Yeah, what is the proper response to minister to someone who is confused about their gender? And it says, I will not shame them. I would love them. I would build a relationship. I would at some point tell them what the Bible said, but I would love them.
A couple of thoughts of thousands, but I think often in the Christian community we use answers as hammers and we don't listen. And when somebody's coming from such a different standpoint and they know it, I really want to hear their story. And if that takes 2 or 3 hours, what do you think? What's your experience? Where are you coming from? I think one of our deepest longings as people is to be really, really understood, and that so seldom happens. I think that needs to be part of our strategy. Sometimes I think Christians think, well, I'm compromising. I don't think you're compromising at all. If you leave it there, so that's one thought. I think my second thought would be to ask somebody like that, what do you believe about who God is? And then what do you believe about the Bible? And then I want to listen to what they say. If they affirm God as authority or Scripture as authority, then I would want to say, let's go back to Genesis 1 and 2 and talk about what God created. if they don't believe God's an authority or Scripture's an authority, I'd want to say, can we dialogue about that? And that's where I would start.
Yeah, long before HR would not let you ask someone about their faith. Long before it was an issue. When I interviewed people to work for my company, I had a series of questions, and one of them was, how do you know the difference between right and wrong? And that was really trying to find out whether they have some type of grounding in the Bible, in an authority figure, whatever. And I asked people that today, how do you know the difference between right and wrong? And I'll never forget, one lady said to me, well, I just look at what my lawmakers say. I mean, they're the ones that make the law, so I've got to trust that. Now, is that, as a guy that works with law, isn't that just about foolish? I mean, that's building your house on sand. You know, they'll change the law tomorrow, and now I'm messed up. Where's the morals in that?
Well, and remember, our lawmakers are supposed to represent the people, so the value should start with the voters and be represented by the lawmakers.
Frank?
Well, last time you were here, we had a caller who was wanting you to basically say that Christ or God came as Christ in the flesh.
Right.
And he couldn't get a pastor to declare that.
Right.
So I think that goes to what you were saying a little bit ago, that the point that you were making.
Mm-hmm. The microphone's up here.
Yes.
Okay.
He's fading.
So here's something that I like to say is, before I had Jesus in my life, I always looked for the difference between right and wrong. Let's say you're wrong, Peter. So you'd say, well, this is my boundary. This is where right is and this is where wrong is. Well, then I'd push the wrong. And I'd push it again. And I'd push it to see how far I could get you to change your right from wrong. And I thought somehow I was really smart for doing that. What Jesus taught me is I need to look at the difference between right and almost right. And I think if our kids spent more time on right and almost right, that'd be a good educational tool. All right, we're coming up on the break. We're back live here on what? Huh? Come on. What?
The truth.
The truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
Northern Lights Pizza, your home of the tasty crust. Our garlic butter sauce now available in 12-ounce bottles at Northern Lights, Hy-Vee, and Graziano's.
Northern Lights Pizza.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common, everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Hank, the Bible Answer Man. You can reach out and talk to Hank at 1-888-ASK-HANK. Call now. It's a nationwide program. And we would appreciate it if you just say you listen to the truth in Des Moines, Iowa, or in central Iowa. A whole plethora of guests, everybody from Pastor Steve Bailey of North Point Church, which meets at 10 a.m. at Rock Creek Elementary in Ankeny. Peter Komanowski, who's the president of a partnership for a drug-free Iowa. Frank DeVerse Thomas, and, of course, Bob Montserrat, the Cat in the Hat. We have a comment from Secretary of the Underservices, Admiral and 5-star General Brad Sand.
Whoa. And what he says is, Mac, I don't want my daughter taking her eye off of right. Almost right is simply wrong.
Whew, that's powerful.
Can I throw another thought in there?
Yeah.
I think we get lost too quickly in trying to define truth when there's an awesome answer. It's not a thing, it's a person. It's God. It's God's character. Truth isn't a thing that God made. I think even the laws of the universe, the mathematical principles, those aren't things. They're an evidence of God's creation. There would be no math. There would be no right angles without God's character. So with all of this stuff that we're talking about, you can't define anything morally apart from God's character and get it right. So when we try and redefine it, we're really redefining God, and we lose every time.
Yeah. You know, I go ahead, Frank.
Would you agree that that's our moral compass, that innate ability, that innate knowledge of right and wrong? I think it when Christ put enmity between the woman and the serpent, between the woman's seed and the serpent's seed, that he gave that compass, that moral compass. Nobody would think of charting an uncharted ocean without a compass.
I think it's there, but then over time, and I think our culture is at least a lot of it's a good example of whether you call it being fried, what's the term? Fried, losing it over time, or it being damaged. Back to the slippery slope idea of the compass. You beat the compass long enough, it stops working, right?
Yeah.
Well, and we were talking earlier, too, that our children are being indoctrinated by the liberal left. They've taken control over schools. I don't even call them public schools anymore. I call them government schools. In fact, I have for years. They're not public schools. They don't reflect the public. They reflect the government and the idea that the government wants to control people. They want us to work hard and give them their money. And this whole Bernie Sanders thing is just proof that this younger generation thinks that's okay. That's okay. I love the story about the daughter who comes home and complains to her father that he's so conservative and he's such a capitalist. You should be more of a progressive, Dad. And he said, well, what does that look like? And he said, well, you share. Dad, you got to share what you have. And he said, well, how are you doing in school? And she says, I got a 4.0. I said, how's your friend Audrey doing? Oh, she's not doing so good. She's hardly passing, and they don't even know if they'll let her come back to college. Well, how about we take 2 points off of your 4.0 and give it to her, and you'll both have 2.0s, and then Audrey can continue to go to school, and you'll have a good grade average. She said, that'll never happen. That's not fair. He said, welcome to the Republican Party. You know? The Bernie Sanders thing scares me. Not that he's doing so well. It's that he's doing so well with kids. You know, we're getting people acclimated into thinking that everything should be free. Free. Now, if my grandfather was sitting here, I'll bet he'd say the same thing about me, though. How entitled I am. How even when I was 15, how entitled I was. You know, my family owned a car dealership, so guess what I thought I was entitled to? A car to drive. And then I got a little older. What was I entitled to? I need a house. Now, my deal is I never looked for a free deal. I was always willing to work hard and buy it. But now we've somehow evolved into this. It's not my responsibility to provide what I want. It's your responsibility to provide what I want.
Commandments?
Yeah. What?
Is this coveting? Thou shalt not covet.
Absolutely. It's coveting.
Here's a novel idea. How about our schools go back to teaching instead of social experimentation?
But they can't do that because they can't control the outcome then. They've got to control the outcome. You know what amazes me, and Steve, I don't know if you see this or not, they're rewriting history books. Mm-hmm. They're actually taking events out of history because they don't want our kids to know that that this happened at that point, or no, we want you to see it this way.
There's actually a book by Cato Byrne that gives voice to that very thing, that they're trying to take out the wars and things of men's contributions and put in more women's contributions. It's she's got a book out, something, it's a number of years ago, but like the 100 Worst Women in the World, radical feminists, how they're trying to change the agenda in the schools, etc.
All right. Well, Pastor and Professor, I appreciate you being here today. Can't wait to have you back. What's your last word on morality in America right now? I mean, and you know, you heard about it driving in. You've got kids at a sports event yelling Trump, Trump, Trump.
Yeah.
And now that is a racist term.
Here's my last word from Proverbs 4. Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Make level paths for your feet. Take only ways that are firm. Do not swerve to the right or the left. Keep your foot from evil.
I like that. Peter, thanks for coming in today.
Thank you.
You're always welcome.
You know, I love it. And Pastor, you've reminded me, and I always wonder why the cornerstone of education and families aren't the 10 Commandments. A simple path scribed in stone.
Well, because people want to be their own gods. Anytime anybody knocks me because I follow Jesus, I say, well, who do you follow? Well, I have a God. Well, who is he? Well, he's my special God. And so I look at them and say, you mean he's you? You're your own God, because you can decide whatever you want at any whim, what's right or wrong, or right or almost right, or whatever it is. All right, Bob, you and I will be here tomorrow, and we've got a young lady on the phone who has written a book about marriage. I thought that'd be a good subject for you and I to listen to.
Sure.
And also Tim Overland's coming in a little bit tomorrow, and it's going to be 15% more fun because Frank's on vacation.
Don't put your cart before the horse. I may always show up.
I want to read you this is my reading for church on Sunday. I read, and I printed it up today, and I think it's just amazing. Timothy 4. I solemnly urge you, in the presence of God and Christ Jesus, who will someday judge the living and the dead when he comes to set up his kingdom, preach the word of God. Be prepared, whether this time is favorable or not. Patiently correct, rebuke, and encourage your people with good teaching. For a time is coming when people will no longer listen to sound and wholesome teachings. They will follow their own desires, and they will look for teachers who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. They will reject the truth and chase after myths. But you should keep a clear mind in every situation. Don't be afraid of suffering for the Lord. Work at telling others the good news so you can fully carry out ministry. The time of my death is near. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have remained faithful. Good words to close by. Remember, tonight, forgive somebody, would you? Life's too short. And remember, the good book says, as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you tomorrow.